What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Legion of Chaos. This week we're talking about Hunter x Hunter.
Fair
So
enough.
I want to just run real quick. I guess go through both of you guys. What is your favorite part of Hunter x Hunter?
That's tough. Because like for me, I don't know. I really enjoyed the whole show. I don't know. I like New York, New City a lot. Like I know that like that's a lot of people's favorite arcs, but I really enjoyed the Phantom Troop and even seeing them pop up later throughout the show.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I thought it was pretty fun.
So controversial opinion, but Greed Island was the best arc. Um, you said York New City, and I feel like every single time somebody says that, the fact Killua brought a shovel to that fight, bro.
Oh,
Man didn't conjure a shovel. Man brought the shovel.
it, that's such a badass moment, honestly.
Oh yeah, it was.
Like this is for you for later. Like, he's like, I just can't like imagine like going up to a fight. Someone's like, oh, like I'm gonna kill you in this fight. So
Yeah, but
Let's
I
talk
brought
about-
a shovel.
But I love Greed Island too. I think it gets a lot of hate from just what I've seen like on social media and things like that. But I think Greed Island's a great arc.
I loved every
Yeah.
second of the Greed Island arc. I loved it because it was like it was more of like one of those video game arcs. And obviously some people will compare it to things like SAO but it's really just not like that. It's an opportunity for them to get significantly stronger. And that was a lot of fun to see outside or unaided by, I don't want to say unaided entirely, outside of exterior sources. So like they didn't need to get stronger. It showed the principles of advanced Nin. It's the same reason why I think the tournament arc for the Heavens Arena arc is fundamentally the best arc. Even though it's like, because both of the two arcs lay the groundwork for what Nin is, and how it works. We learned about the different types of Nin in Heaven's Arena, and then we finally get to see how Gon and Killua apply it in Greed Island. We didn't get to see them apply anything in York New. By all means, it was kind of just a third-person perspective on, multiple different other characters like Hisoka and Crollo. We got to see a lot of third-person interactions, but we didn't really see Gon and Killua do all too much in that arc.
Yeah.
And we didn't really see a lot of use of Nen. Don't get me wrong, Nen was present, but we didn't see the advanced use and type of Nen. We just saw Kurapika kind of just have the specialist ability, which I guess I should preface. His specialist ability is that when his eyes glow red, he gets 100% access to all the abilities in every single other tree, which is broke as shit.
Yeah.
So-
Also, just real quick, because I actually just did a Nen test for myself just to see what I got. But have you guys ever done a Nen test just to see what you had?
I have.
I
I'm
have
a
not.
manipulator.
Nice. I was put as specialist.
Okay.
Yeah, so the thing is that every single person, we learned this in the manga, but every single person eventually becomes a specialist, because as you get more and more and more and more good at what you do, you develop. As you do that, you become a specialist. Wing kind
Yeah.
of alludes to that in Heaven's Arena, but then Bisky really hammers it home.
Well, I
That,
think
like,
we.
Everyone gets their special ability at some point.
Well, I think
Yeah.
really, I mean, we're first really introduced to that with Hisoka, and because we see, or whatever the opponent was that was fighting showed us the imperfect version, where it's like he had the specialist of the duplication, but it wasn't proper.
You mean
it wasn't.
Castro?
Yeah,
So Castro
Castro-
wasn't a specialist. The story
Well-
behind Castro was that he focused too much in the manipulator category when he was a physical enhancement type.
Yeah.
So the problem with Castro was that he was trying to work on abilities that weren't his own. And
Yeah.
what we learned is the farther away you get from your own home ability, the harder it is to master it until it becomes impossible. And so with Castro, I believe it's called like Viper's Bite. I think Wing points it out, but Castro, she was saying that, yeah, if Castro had actually practiced that, he would have easily beaten Hisoka. But because he didn't practice his own abilities and focused on something that he considered to be more technical, when in reality, as a fighter, he's not particularly technical, he lost.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Well, what I meant was like it
Yeah.
was kind of like it was. So, well, I was gonna say. Well, I was gonna say first. Hisoka was like the first we really introduced of like the true like specialist type because of his bungee gum. Like we see that he's perfected that thing to the point that it's like you see that just like it like once he locks on to an opponent, they're pretty much fucked.
Yeah, for sure. And Bungee Gum is one of those abilities where it's not necessarily anything special. He's just a transmuter, but his genius in play is what makes him so powerful. Speaking of powerful, do we want to like acknowledge that all of the most powerful characters in the verse are transmuters?
I mean, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
Netero, Phaeton, Biscuit, Hisoka, Sadaso. Like, well, I guess Sadaso was weaker, but he was certainly powerful in his arc. You have both of the Zoldycks, Zeno, Silva, and Killua are all transmuters.
Seriously,
Machi's a
like-
transmuter. Like, what? That entire category is loaded with all the powerful people.
dang, I kind of wish I was a transmuter. But no, I
It
definitely
makes me
think
regret. It makes me regret being just starting out as a specialist. It's like, wait, fuck, I had. Nah,
Well, of
everyone
course,
else
the
did.
specialists also have some good abilities, though. Like,
Yeah.
for some reason, every single specialist's ability is that they can copy other people's abilities. Well, outside of a couple, but like legit, every specialist is like that, and it's kind of really confusing to think about because Jing can copy everybody's abilities. Crollo can copy other people's abilities. The only one who can't copy other people's abilities is Kite, and he gets other abilities by using his ability.
Yeah, the Nen. I do find it funny how like Nen is like the perfect like it's balanced, but it's also low key kind of broken because the transmuters just have this weird advantage where it's like they're all the powerful people are transmuters. But like there is still like an insane amount of like there's pros and cons of each action you do into investing yourself into improving your Nen, where like your choices have like there are sacrifices that need to be made and like there's benefits and then there's benefits. Like as I said, like I think what I was trying to get with Castro is like Castro had the benefit of he learned how to make a perfect semi-perfect duplicate of himself, but he left himself wide open to the fact that he lost focus of his own ability and it was just one big weak spot where it's like
Exactly. He backfired. What I think is weird about that is, and we can point it out here, is that you mentioned that transmuters are the strongest type and they seem to have the most people. And I kind of realized something because you were talking about practicing on your own category. When you think about it conceptually, the transmuters have to work the hardest, though, which explains why they're all the strongest, because the nature of their ability is fundamentally weaker than everybody else's. They can just change the innate property of something.
yeah.
But rather than manipulation, which allows you to control people or enhancing your physical strength to the point of which you can knock down buildings, things like that are innately powerful. Just being able to turn one thing into another necessarily powerful on its own. It appears to me that everyone in the transmuter category is basically they're powerful because they have to be, or else they can't, they can't come up to everybody else and actually have a fight with them. Right? They have to be these smart characters that are either really fast or have other properties to themselves which allow them to enhance themselves as a character.
I feel like
They can't just run straight transmutation. They have to have some technical skill.
If we had like a pool of like accurate results of like the population in terms of who would just be a natural transmuter, I feel like it would be a pure just broken chart where it's like you're either on one extreme or the other extreme, where you're either really good or you're really weak.
Exactly.
Because as you said, it's like we're mostly exposed to transmuters that are insanely powerful, but I bet if we looked at like the transmuters that aren't powerful, they're all weak as shit.
Yeah, so
Well,
like that's
exactly.
true. So you have Biscuit, Phaeton, Hisoka, Killua, Maki, Mortitonio, Porcupine, Sadaso, Silva, Worm, and Zeno. Worm, Porcupine, Mortitono, and Sadaso aren't that strong, right?
Yeah.
But all of the other transmuters are broken. Like,
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
all the other transmuters are really
It's
strong.
kind of it almost acts as if like I don't know if you would agree to me, but like I've played against people in Smash Bros that are just extremely good with Ganon. It's like you either like Ganon is either like you suck with Ganon because he's extremely difficult to play, but those people that know how to play him are just impossible to actually fucking beat because like he's got insane fight priority, and he's like his attacks are broken when you time them right. I think like that's kind of like what transmuters are, is like just a straight Ganondorf type of character, type of fighter.
You're either really good or you're really bad. And
Yeah.
if you're really, really bad, you're not in the show because you got killed early.
that's a good,
Yeah.
that's a good analogy. I personally think like when it comes to just like that initial like starting off like really strong, like enhancers probably have like that best kind of starting off point versus like the other types.
I agree. I think enhancers in the specialists have the best points. We see that in Hunter x Hunter, like characters operate very much on like a, I don't want to say, well, I guess I'll say it like this. They operate on a JoJo spectrum of how fights go, where if you know your opponent's ability, it's basically a win. Does that make sense? So when you know your opponent's ability, it's easier to defeat them. But likewise, if you just have a basic ass ability, like, yeah, I'm just super strong, fast, and durable, and you can't do anything about it, knowing their ability doesn't help you as much as it would with like a transmuter or a manipulator. Like we saw with Gon versus the guy with the spinning tops. Once Gon knew how those worked, it didn't matter what he did, right? Because Gon mastered his abilities, and therefore the spinning tops just couldn't do anything about his physical strength or speed.
I thought that was actually a really interesting fight because we see how he gets his ass kicked because he has no experience with Nen, and I think that one, it does a good job with his character where he just goes in straight up because like I think like when you look at how Gon is throughout the entirety of like really the Hunter x Hunter, especially to that point, you see that like he rarely ever gets like he rarely ever has had to like deal with a straight loss where he wasn't bailed out of it. And like that was like a point where he's like, you see that he's overly confident in himself because he thinks that he's gotten it all figured out. But it's like, dude, you just started. You got your this isn't even the first time he necessarily got his ass kicked, because he got his ass kicked during the Hunter exams back when he was when he was pursuing Hisoka. The guy that was pursuing him was watching over him the whole time to strike. And then, so like he was blindsided by that. And then two, in the final phase, you see that like he didn't win that fight in terms of like who was better skilled or whatever. I forget whatever the guy's name was. But like
I know you're talking about. I just can't remember his name either.
He won because he was so in refusal to give up, to forfeit, that the guy was just like, all right, fuck this. I'm not here to torture this dude. I'm just
talking about Hanzo.
Yeah, Hanzo.
He won against Hanzo because Hanzo didn't want to kill him.
Yeah.
And
because he couldn't. He couldn't. Like, or else he'd lose. And he couldn't just. And like it was interesting. I remember watching that for the first time, just thinking of how Hanzo was threatening to cut off his legs, and he's like, "Okay, go ahead and do it." And then everyone in the entire audience was just dead silent because they're like, "What the fuck is this guy thinking?" But then he breaks it down. He's like, "Dude, I'd pass out if you do that." But still, the fact that he was like, "Okay, do it."
It's like, well, here's the thing: is that the problem was the judge ruled if Gon passed out because he cut off his legs, that he still wouldn't take that as a submission. So, like the no kill rule kind of screwed over a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, but Gon was technically metagaming that.
Well, as I said, like Gon,
it didn't really matter if you were physically better than your opponent. What mattered was if you gave up, and that was the point of the fight. But at the same time, it was kind of silly.
Well, I thought it was interesting because, like, I personally, that's always been my favorite part of Hunter x Hunter, is the Hunter exams, because I thought it was interesting how they broke down everything mentally. Like, you really look at like how the first phase goes, where you you see that like they have to run who knows how long because there's no clear given distance they have to do. So it's all a mental like running that distance is entirely a mental battle. It's not just like that's endurance and just and mentality. Like you need to be strong minded in order to do that when you don't know when the finish line is. Additionally, I think the second phase was people don't understand the value of it, but like to have to take your skills as a hunter and apply them into a practical means for others other areas. I think that like that is actually a pretty interesting trial to give to hunters, where it's like, sure, you're good at killing people, you're good at hunting down humans and whatever, but how about actually using your skills in being another kind of hunter, like just hunting for food?
Exactly, because there's so many different types of hunters, and like it's not like being a hunter is not just like limited to like a few options. Like how we saw, like you said exactly what you said, like with the gourmet hunters, like hunters that specialize in cooking and things like that.
Yeah.
Like,
So to my point, what I enjoyed about the hunter exams is that all 5 phases offered some kind of test on mental strength. Like the third phase, the teamwork phase, where it's like where you can also see throughout each round that there's mental strains on everyone. Especially like you see like Gon like was able to figure it out quickly, but the whole candle battle was, I thought, really interesting because that's like keeping your cool and recognizing the scenario, because that was complete trickery and just understand and recognizing the flaws in the opponent's scheme. And then Leorio, I think, was an excellent thing of where he's just doing the rock paper scissors and shit, and gambling. Like that's gambling. Like I've done plenty of poker and shit, like I've never gambled like actual money, but like the strain it takes just to do that kind of game on is extremely, like, it's a lot. Like the pressure is serious. Especially when you're bleeding chips and bleeding points. That's like the more you bleed, the more stress is put on you to get stuff going, and that's really when you break apart and show your true colors. So all that, like in the third phase, I thought was just brilliant, and like how they had to trust each other, when even if they trusted each other in terms of they know they had each other's back, except for the one guy, like they still had to trust each other's judgment because it was a team-based decision.
yeah,
like no. And then fourth phase, I think, was all about patience and being able to strike at the right time with your opponent. We see that. Like, I think it was the least mental out of all of them. That was a lot more physical, but I think mentally you did still need to prepare. They did still need to prepare. Like Gon spent a whole day trying to fish just so that he could figure out his timing, so that he could go up against Hisoka. And then finally fifth phase, not giving up was the entire name of the battle. It had nothing to do with beating the other person. It had to do with simply not giving up. And we see how far Gon was willing to take himself for that. Like I think it's really interesting, and you could even see a little bit of that shit where it's like Killua, Hisoka and Kurapika, they had to fight each other first round, and then Hisoka was like, nah, here, I'm gonna tell you a little secret, and then I'm just gonna quit the match and wait until next round. I thought that was just hilarious. Like that was just crazy. Like, cause like Kurapika would have been fucked in any other circumstance, but like the amount of mental strain that went on among these characters, like you see how Kurapika needs to pursue his own path because of this shit, because Hisoka had something had a lead for him on the Phantom Troops, so he's spending this whole time repairing himself afterwards. You can see how much this takes a toll on people after the fact, that this is not over, that they still got, like, as hunters, now that they are hunters, that's where the real challenge begins.
Mm-hmm. But honestly, another thing also, like, yes, like that is where like a lot of those like other challenges come through, because like we see like the other examination when they're like trying to determine like what type of nen they like are like specialize in. But I'm not gonna lie, like if I had a hunter's license, that'd be kind of nice, because like just the perks of having a hunter's license.
Yeah, like you could
Well, a lot of people wanna
practically
get it.
You could practically spend your entire life doing nothing, and you could, because the hunter license lets you do anything. Like you get to travel for free, you get to do a bunch, you get a lot of perks and shit like that. Like it's a valuable item, and like the fact, I think it's funny how how like much of an oddity every Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio were to have the hunter exam because they had no clue what Nen was at the time. So like to think like that they were a complete oddity to get that far and just not know Nen. Like you could see how in the look of everyone, it's like how the fuck do they have hunter licenses when they know nothing about Nen? Like this is like a serious thing where the best of the best are trying to compete with each other, and not everyone gets a hunter license because like it's an extremely intense set of challenges that like
I don't know. I personally feel like I don't know. I feel like most people kind of going into the hunter exam don't really have too much knowledge about Nen because like that's one of the things like where they had Heaven's Arena, like they're like kind of focusing on like, okay, like yes, like you completed the hunter exam, but like this is your next test, like learning about Nen. So a lot of them are learning. We want to say,
I
Johnson?
mean, yeah, I'm just saying, like, I think given we do see Nen users in the hunter exam when they knew Nen, like, I don't really know. I mean, I guess you could say, yeah, that's true, but I don't remember if Hanzo had any Nen abilities at the time. I know Hisoka did. I know.
He had Nen abilities.
Yeah, I know Hanzo.
Yeah, all the higher ups in that tournament had Nen abilities except for Gon and Killua.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying is like him and Killua, and also like they were all like every single one of them was had Nen abilities except for the group, except for
Though
all
it
the main.
appeared that a lot of them weren't using them. That or Gon and Killua simply couldn't see it.
Yeah, I think it's the
Yeah.
latter. I really think it's the latter because like we see how broken how broken their abilities are. Like even before we explicitly see the Nen, I think that's a good, like I think the point of that was to transition into where we see that these are freaks of nature. And now like so compare that to Gon, even Gon and Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, and even Killua, like I know like Killua still has some crazy abilities, but like he gets completely dumb. He gets completely outmatched by whatever the old guy's face is that like with just his right hand or his left hand or whatever, just one hand. He just like because he just doesn't let him get the ball. It's like that's all he had to do.
Netero.
Yeah, like I think it's interesting how like it's clear as day like Nen isn't explicitly required in the hunter exams to get the license, but like really like given the main characters were all like oddities in and of themselves, like they were narratively not supposed to have made it that far to begin with because like rookies generally didn't get that far. It was clear as day like everyone else was far more experienced. It's doubtful that for anyone that this was their first time other than the main four we were focusing on. Like I think it's really interesting that these guys made it as far, and it was like, dude, it's insane you made it as far, but you barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
And like it's like a crazy, like it's weird because like generally story structures like this give you a weird whiplash of like,
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt for a second because I know John, you're gonna want to hear this.
Okay.
Cuban Crusher is currently getting bitched on Mortal Kombat 11.
Oh
Man
my
does not
God.
know how to play the game. It's so
Holy
bad.
shit.
He's
Wait,
legit. He just got caught in like
Is
a
he on
4-stage
Twitch?
combo, and
Is
he's
he on
getting
Twitch?
bitched again. Oh, he's spamming the poor dude. Oh my God, he does not know how to play Sub-Zero. He's legit was sitting there.
Oh,
spamming.
he's live. Fuck. I'm watching right now. Fuck. Fuck, I got
He
ads.
legit was spamming. Look, and now he's getting bitched again,
Oh
bro.
my God.
In the
Fuck,
first,
I got ads.
this is his rematch. In the first game, he got his cheeks clapped. He started just spamming
Oh my God.
the ice shard ball from. He just burned his ultimate just to try to recover some. Oh my God, his goof up, and he's already in the fatality range again.
Oh my
He
god.
doesn't know how to block.
Jesus Christ.
Well, he
I mean,
can
like,
block, but he doesn't. Like,
bro, like, why go on Twitch and do that shit? Like, I am not.
yeah, I know.
particularly-
Why go on Twitch if you're gonna lose consistently?
Like, oh, here it is. Yeah, fuck, he got dogged. Oh.
It's so bad. Anyway,
Oh my god,
back to
he's
Nin.
so angry. Yeah, no, like I myself am not particularly good with Mortal Kombat, but like I don't go on Twitch to pretend. Like if
I'm
I'm gonna
a
actually,
third strike comp player. I care.
I mean, yeah, but like if
Me
I'm
when I
gonna
watch you
get,
not block that and then spam. Oh,
yeah, but anyway, I think, yeah, I think it's interesting how we get like usually this type of storytelling is weird because it's like, oh, you master this, you complete this phase in the story, but then very next story you don't know shit. So you learn how to overcome the next obstacle. Now you don't know shit again. But like I think the Hunter x Hunter makes it work where it's like, as I said, like narratively, Gon and Killua are complete oddities to what should and shouldn't be the case. Where it's clear as day, there's and under no circumstances should they have completed the license. It was not set up so that they could. Everything was stacked against them. These were stuff that generally Nen abilities would be needed. And I think it's clear that like how all the tasks that were all the phases that you had would have been significantly easier had they used Nen at the time. Like simply being an enhancer, being a transmuter, being anything. Like your skills would have been very useful. It's just, and like these were things that naturally no human should be able to do, and yet they did it. And I think like that carries forward. It's like you had no reason to do that, and that was just a portion of that. Like where generally you're only supposed to be able to do that with a Nen user, but maybe you could get away with it. But this time in the Heavens Arena, you can't get by without doing this because you're just going to be dogged on by everyone in the higher ups. And that's what we're shown with when Gon first enters. Like he has a slight understanding of Nen because they had to do it at that point. Otherwise, they wouldn't be allowed in because Hisoka just wouldn't let them. And if not,
the whole thing is once you pass the 100th floor, everybody has Nen. Ability.
Yeah.
So Hisoka stopped them from getting in because if you want to remember, like for those who haven't read the manga, Hisoka isn't as like creepy as he is in the anime. He's obsessed with like people who possibly can beat him. He's not obsessed with people like children.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Potential is like Gon could theoretically beat me. Like he's actually interested in them, so he keeps Gon and Killua from killing themselves when Wing steps in.
Yeah, no,
It's the same reason why the Zoldyck family has you stop at the 100th floor.
Yeah, I was aware of that because I've looked into like all that stuff because everyone is like, oh, Hisoka's a pedophile. It's like, I mean, even in the anime, you see that. Like, I think when when I've seen,
he's weird as hell in the anime.
Oh, he's weird as hell.
I can't even defend anime Hisoka, bro. He goofy, man. He's straight weird.
What I was gonna say is what I was gonna say is the fact that like he openly expresses sexual arousal just to mess with people, and that's like I think it's where like he openly mocks people by how aroused he gets. Like it's not even just Gon or Killua, but like he actively like just starts flirting with random people because of their abilities. And it's like bro like how like that it's weird as fuck. It's like that's pretty low-key predatory, but like even though like in the it's like he's clearly just using to fuck with people, it's still creepy as shit, as you said. Like I think it's like as you said, like the manga is definitely significantly more chill with it. It's like they don't try to do this pedophilia shit. And I think like there's also a difference in like the sub and dub where like you see there like the English dub like makes it a lot more ambiguous to open the door to that possibility of, oh, maybe he's into them sexually. Whereas like the sub, it's like, look, he just straight up says, can I like about Killua, can I kill him? But in the English dub, he's like, may I? It's like, what the fuck is that shit? Like as I said, like in the in the Japanese version, he's explicitly stating he just wants to kill him. Like, it has nothing to do with anything else. And I think that's weird. It's super weird how he's expressed, but I don't know if it's intentional, if it was deliberate or just a bad translation of the manga. But yeah, it's super strange how he does this shit.
Yeah, anime Hisoka is something else. That's
Yeah, he's weird.
I mean, because as I said, like we see Hisoka do this exact same thing to other people besides Gon and Killua. Like we see him do this to grown ass adults, like especially other hunters. When that one lady is helping him out, he's starting to get all flirty with her, and just like because he got his arm cut off, and even just like all of his opponents, he acts that way. It's like I don't know if that was like intent. As I said, like I don't know if that's intentional, or if it's a bad translation of the manga. But either way, it's weird. It's weird as shit. Like he comes off way too predatory.
Right.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think that's beyond the point of like, yeah, the Heaven's Arena. I think in general, I think to your point, like once they're introduced to Nen, it's clear like they start understanding what the fuck's going on, because when they didn't know, it's like they were told like, dude, hunters in this level do not tolerate people who have no knowledge of Nen. Like they will just kill you, like straight up, because like they feel insulted by this fact that somebody who doesn't have any knowledge of Nen does that. And like compare that to every floor below them, where like they easily just no-diff everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that was crazy how like that was the first time Gon was fighting since the Hunter exam, or at least like actually fighting back, and he was insane. He was surprised by how strong he was, and I think it hints a lot at how.
Sorry, I'm coding something and I just figured it out.
Oh, I know that feeling.
I will say, Jossie, one thing I think is interesting, especially like when Kakashi mentioned it earlier about like maybe there were like people that were using Nen in the Hunter exam, but they couldn't tell, because like when you think about like some of the episodes like in like Heaven's Arena and things like that, like how they are focusing their Nen around their eyes to be able to see certain like abilities.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to comment on that as well.
I think that's interesting.
I think that's an intentional pacing decision in order to have us ease into the understanding. Where first we're introduced to Nen through Illumi, where he mind fucks Killua, and it's super vague and unclear what it is. We have no idea what is going on, but we know Killua was conflicted by that because he has no idea what the fuck just happened, and like then that's the first time, and then we see it again through fuck, what's the guy's name? Kid with the Z, the kid with the. I'm bad with these names. I'm having a horrible. It was. What was? Where? Oh, Zushi. Yeah, Zushi. Where Zushi is just constantly getting up from Hisoka's attacks, even though Killua knows that like these strikes he does are indefinitely going to incapacitate someone. But like only people that don't know Nen are incapacitated by it, because if you understand Nen, that it doesn't really do much, like other than sure it slows you down a little bit, but like it doesn't knock you out. So that was it. Like it transitions from weird to suddenly, yeah, like Hisoka's using it on Gon and Killua, and they're like, fuck, we're completely powerless, to holy shit, this is a new realm of power that is just like, I think they transition it, like it starts out nothing, then it gets into this weird ambiguity of nobody has any idea what the fuck's going on, but now we know what's going on, so we see it more.
Yeah, I do have an interesting thought that I got that just kind of like popped up in my brain. So like we see like in Greed Island where Bisky is like kind of explaining in more detail about like how like to use men and like things like that to like even like defend against yourself, like not focusing all your nen in one spot. It makes me kind of curious on if he was teaching oh my gosh, you just said his name, I forgot his name.
Zushi.
Yeah, Zushi. If he had trained him like in those different like fields of nen, like before like teaching Killua like in them about like just the basics in the sense of like that's why he kind of like focuses nen like on like his neck where like Killua's like going in to like knock him out to like
Yeah.
prevent himself from being knocked out.
But
Yeah.
if you remember, Wing actually doesn't teach Gon and Killua actual nen at first. He actually
Yeah.
lies to him, and Zushi brings that up. He's
Yeah.
like, "Why did you lie to them?"
Well,
Right.
I mean, technically, he didn't lie to them. He only just told them half of the truth.
I don't know if that's accurate.
Like he told them he told them an idea. Well, I mean, it was a lie. Like he deliberately told them something that he knew that they wouldn't understand, but it was still a true fact that like like what he said was true. It's just it was bare minimum so that they wouldn't know it. They wouldn't figure it out.
Correct. I still think that's lying. That's just me, though.
I mean, it is lying. It's just that like it's lying. It's just that he told the truth. It's just he lied and acted like
Is that what you say when you lie to people, Johnsky? Is that what you say?
Yeah, like, oh, I told the truth. It's just that I manipulated the context so that you would believe something else, which is what makes it a lie. But the statement itself is true.
I get that. I get it.
I mean, but
I don't like it, but I get it.
No, you get you get it. Yeah, you don't like it, but that's exactly what Wing did. Is that like he like, and I think it's funny how he played it off as like, look, I told you the truth. It's just I didn't tell you jack shit. Like, and like as you said, like I think it was interesting how we see Nen start to become part of them, and how like a lot of this starts out a mystery until they learn exactly how it works, and then we start seeing it. And I think like that's when we get less explanations period of what's going on, because we already have context as what, like once they establish the context, we don't need to understand why we physically see these things, because it's clear that we're looking at in the perspective of these characters to an extent. And now that it's important to them, it's important for us to see it. And honestly, I think it like really it's kind of like any anime in which you never recognize the memes until you watch the anime, and now you see the memes everywhere. Like that's basically how Nen works.
Yeah.
Its presence is you only see it when you've actually learned what happens.
I don't know. I really like Net. Like I've told people this several times. Like Nen's like one of my favorite power systems in anime. I love the concept, and I just like seeing how they use their different abilities. Like even like where Kakashi was saying like how like almost everyone like ends up being a specialist to some degree. Like when you see like them developing like their specific types of Nen. I just think it's like I love the power system. It's really cool.
Yeah. And yeah, to my point, I think it's funny how like it's balanced but also low-key kind of broken, but it's balanced in how broken it is, because like as you point out, like transmuters are some of the most powerful people in like out of all Nen users, but they're also the weakest.
Yeah.
Like it's a power system that has its pros and cons, and like every Nen ability you learn requires you to sacrifice something else, where you could learn. And I think that was the great aspect of being introduced to Castro as a character, is where we see the abilities that he gains out of his choices to not focus on his own native ability, but then we see the downside of it, which it can easily be exploited. I think that that's where it's important that there are pros and cons to every decision you make when it comes to Nen and training yourself with Nen, and there are sacrifices that have to be made in place in when you choose to do one thing. And the trick is figuring out which sacrifices you can and should make in order to actually truly better yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because like there's a quick way to get these crazy abilities, but not know like you can learn other abilities outside of your own native Nen type. But if you don't know jack shit about your own type, then you're pretty much fucked. And I think it's like it's a concept of mastering. It's a balance of mastering of the difference between mastering one ability between learning how to do a million different abilities. Like that's like a common thing in martial arts where like you can master one style and like you can master one discipline, or you could learn 20 different disciplines. Learning 20 different disciplines doesn't necessarily mean shit compared to like having actually mastered just one, because mastering just one is insane. Like that's significantly more valuable. But at the same time, like there is a degree with, and I think with Nen, where you can master your own ability, but you still also should learn other abilities to as much as you can, because they do have value. But don't lose focus of your own ability and your own specialty of what you're good at.
Well, one thing that like they like made like kind of clear, like pointing out, just like depending on like where you fall on like the diagram, it tells you like the percentage of like of Nen you can learn in those other types that like are kind of adjacent to yours, even like some that are the complete opposite. So like I don't remember what I don't think of what the chart looks like off the top of my head, but I think it's how does it go?
It goes, you can learn 100% of your own, 80% of any ability that's bordering it, unless it's a special type. In that case, most of the time it's 0%. Anything two abilities away instead of one, it's 60%. Then the furthest away is 40%.
Mm-hmm. And like I think that's a very good thing that they try like to make like clear at the beginning, because it's like, okay, like this is like my type, but like it might also benefit me to learn these two adjacent types and maybe even expand like once I learn those more.
Yeah. And like I think it was and the specialist type was always the one that I think it's interesting because of how insane and unpredictable it can be, because we're introduced to how it works, and like as I said, like I think with a true time we're introduced to the percentages, or it might have been with Gon and Killua, but with Kurapika, like they point out like, oh, you, like she's no, he fuck yeah, I keep having the mindset Kurapika's a girl even though he's a guy, but like he's a conjurer, and like he's told straight up by his teacher that like the specialist ability, which is literally directly next to him, 0%, compared to the one up next to him, which is 80%, is like, look, this ability, some people have it, but you have to be born with it or like naturally acquire it. That's not something you can just learn. So I don't recommend that shit unless you have to be really lucky to get that.
Yeah. And one interesting thing about like with the conjurer ability, because like with his like teacher kind of let him know that like, hey, whatever you conjure is never going to really be as strong as like the real life thing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that like intense training that he did to like honestly his chains were stronger than regular chains.
Yeah.
And like that's just like something that like they didn't think was like possible or common, but like he trained himself past that point.
Well, he also created that bond. If you don't remember, is that
it's true.
The guy who was training him talked about how you can make your abilities infinitely stronger, but you have to give up everything to do so. Where Killua basically said, if I use this chain against anyone but X, Y, and Z, I die immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well, that's to my point of how every choice you make when acquiring a new Nen ability requires a sacrifice.
And also, I think that's a great like aspect in power systems. Like I
Yeah.
love that kind of concept. And like we see Gon do the same thing where he's like wants to have not just he wants to have all the power he will ever have. Like he like mentioned that like when he was going up against Pito.
Yeah. And I think also another thing is I thought was interesting, which was kind of funny, is how Gon and Killua and also Kurapika were extremely quick to learn how to use Nen. And like how Zushi was just super pissed because like he's been training this all his life and he's just but he hasn't even fully mastered it and they're doing better than he is. He's like, how the fuck did these guys learn it so quickly? I think it's interesting because like it would feel like, oh, that it does seem like a Mary Sue kind of moment, but you got to remember the context of where they came from, having just done the hunter exam, having gone through this intense amount of challenges, like this kind of stuff at this point, having gone through all that mental struggle, those mental challenges, those mental trials of having that they had to overcome, like this was like nothing to them because like generally speaking, it seems a lot more of the norm for typically only being Nen users that get the hunter exam while they have, and it's while they've already learned Nen that they go and actually successfully complete the exams.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's an interesting thing too, because like when you think about it, like you see like examples of like Zishu, and then also the one mob boss's daughter that can like basically predict the future and things like that. Like they, those are just people who had then abilities that like didn't take the hunter exam at all.
Yeah.
So it's interesting seeing that like okay, it's not just like hunters that can develop Nen abilities.
Oh yeah, no, it's obvious. Like I think it was obvious from the start that Nen abilities are not exclusive to hunters. Like we see,
Mhm.
Wing is not is not a fighter at all. He doesn't do fighting. Like he uses Nen, but that is all he does. Like he teaches them how to use Nen, and I think that's what's helpful is that I think a lot of the people that we see as teachers for Nen are not particularly noted to be good fighters that know how to utilize Nen in a fight. They are simply just there to know how to perfectly utilize Nen, not fight with it. Because I think that's different. And like, look, you don't like just like you can learn Nen for all other kinds of applications besides just fighting. Like there's significant benefits to all of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
like
like,
I said, literally, you have the one girl that like could like tell the future, see the
yeah.
future.
Yeah. And I think, like, as I said, like, I think it's interesting because, we see how much perks the hunter license gives you. We see why it's important. Like, we get, like, and I think with Gon, it's interesting because, like, he wanted the hunter license, not for solely because, like, he thought it would be like an easy ticket to see his dad, but realized it wasn't that easy. And I think as a character, it shows how he is. Like he's a pretty like he always he's as a character. I think he's very different than a lot of shonen MCs where he has resolve that like there's nothing internally, there's no inner conflict in him that's holding him back in his abilities, but he lacks clear direction. Whereas like a lot of other characters, like you could see Naruto, I think is like a prime example of where I would see of like a MC that like has a clear direction of what he wants to do, but he has inner conflict within him that he just because he's basically an ADHD kid who doesn't know how to who barely pays attention to anything. Like it's the other way around for Gon, and like it's so him getting the hunter exam means a lot to him, but he doesn't really know why it means a lot to him because his goals are pretty vague in how to his goal will be, while being quite clear, is kind of like vague of exactly what he's supposed to do. He has no clue what he's doing. He's going in blind
Yeah.
and just winging it.
Well, here's one of the big things about like with his goals, like because like a lot of people I feel like assume that like his goal was just to meet his dad. His goal was to figure out like why what was the thing about being a hunter that made his dad leave him behind.
Oh
So
yeah,
like
I think there's that, but I mean, we're shown that through the tape recording that his dad provides him. He's like, look, do you want to see me just because you think it would be nice to see me? Like he tells him like if that's literally all you want to
Mhm.
do is just see me because you think it would be cool to meet your father, then don't proceed. Don't proceed to the
Mhm.
next to the recording. Just end it right here. Leave. Like never come looking for me
Well,
because you clearly aren't ready.
that's why
Yeah.
like I like have talked to people and like while like yes like some people like view like the anime at least is like oh like I'd be fine with that resolution because like he completed this goal and I was like well not really he met his dad yes but like he still doesn't fully understand like what is it about being a hunter that made him leave in the first place.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially because when you look at
That's
it,
because they really cut it out. Like,
yeah.
which irritated the shit out of me. I don't know if you guys remember, but Kite was originally the person who inspired Gon to be a hunter.
Yeah,
And they cut that out entirely. It kind of frustrates me.
I actually should start reading the Hunter x Hunter manga because it seems interesting. But like I think that kind of what you're saying is absolutely correct. Like that isn't the end of his journey because like that was kind of a childish type of goal. Like as a child, like I get it. Like you can have big dreams. I think with Naruto, what made it work, I didn't. Yeah, he definitely did not. Uh Also, sup, BB. But anyway, I think like when you compare it to like Naruto, where like as a kid he wanted to be Hokage, like we see pretty early on he realizes like okay that shouldn't be my only goal. Like he has other priorities over that childhood dream, where like he has to rescue he wants to rescue Sasuke. He wants to protect the Leaf Village. He wants to do all this stuff before becoming Hokage because he grows up and realizes that like that's just a goal. Like okay, that's not it. That's not where it ends. That like and I think with Gon it's like okay, he did that, but that's not where he ends. And I think the fact that he became an adult, it's like it just demonstrates of like okay, he reached his childhood ambition, like his childhood goal, but like that's not that like now what? He's an adult, like he has plenty of other things he need like I think that's the maturity aspect of him realizing, like I like that's not that shouldn't be it. That's not it. I did what I wanted, but now what else? Like I like as I said, like I think that's an interesting aspect of how a character could just be so big on this one vague idea of what they want and be determined to get there, but not realize but be in over their head and realize that there's no that's like not really think to themselves, okay, once you get to this goal, what next? And they're not actually thinking about that. I think that's perfectly shown with Gon.
yeah. Well, that's one of the things. Like even like with Naruto, like his initial goal wanted to be Hokage. Like his reasonings also like he wanted to do it so he would be accepted by people.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Like I like it is nice like how we do see like a little bit of a shift like throughout the show of like his ambitions because like I'm not gonna lie that initial reasoning for him wanting to be Hokage I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it.
I'll talk. You all hear the theory of the pregnancy stone in the manga? Did they bring up the mom?
Yes, I used the pregnancy stone on your mother last night.
Damn.
Fucking shit. Oh, jeez.
Well, we are probably going to wrap it up soon, though. So,
It's been 53 minutes. I think we've talked about Nin enough. If we want to, thank you everybody for coming. We'll have a part 2 to Hunter x Hunter. There's just a lot of stuff to unpack with the show, and it is a lot of interesting factors. So we will see you all next week, and best of luck.
Right. Have a nice day, everyone. See you then.
See ya.